MysteryWire.com, home of the unusual and unknown. From Area 51 to the paranormal, it's your source to the most vetted UFO stories and special investigations in the world. Take a journey into the universe of MysteryWire.com.
So, Jeremy, good to talk to you again.
Good to see you, George.
Today I figure we intend to break some new ground in the search for evidence about these unknown craft or objects or drones, if that's what you want to call them. A craft of unknown origin, kind of buzzing around military bases, above Navy ships, in restricted airspace, just kind of watching, not attacking, but certainly intruding. A lot of buzz about these issues these days, especially this week. We're always interested in learning about what our government might know about this subject. Especially now, it's sort of like the horses left the barn, the cat's out of the bag. When it comes to UFOs, the Pentagon is grudgingly admitting it's been studying this issue with renewed vigor. A lot of energy behind the push by the public to learn more, and finally, at long last, that's the case. But of course, we're always looking for more information, more info, evidence, images, and I think you and I are about to deliver some. So,
yeah.
I thought we could also talk about the nature of evidence. What counts? Are photos good enough? Are videos good enough? I mean, rarely, you could have a close-up shot of a Billy Meyer beam ship shot from 5 feet away of a hovering helicopter or something, crystal clear, aliens waving out the window. It still wouldn't be good enough for some people, but it would at least advance the discussion and the narrative. I think that we are going to plow some new ground today and talk about the nature of evidence. And Duncan, Phenix, and Matt Adams are going to be joining us toward the later in the conversation after we go through the content that you brought here. I do want to mention Danny Silva. Danny Silva, the Silver Record, wrote an article June of 2020 about an incident aboard the USS Kidd, something that happened back in 2019 in the same area as the Tic Tac incident, which you broke a long time ago, Jeremy. And Danny was acting on a tip given by Dave Beatty, who had heard from a former sailor aboard the Kidd, and who had ship logs that show that a Snoopy team, a small intel team, may have documented whatever this intrusion was. That set off a FOIA stampede. Other journalists have been seeking evidence. The debrief had a wider story about different kinds of military people looking for evidence of images of exotic craft and doing exotic things. Then the Drive had this really detailed piece with more ship logs, and a story about a UAV over the Kidd became much bigger. It was a swarm of drones buzzing the ship, and that story has gone all over the world. Well, all this interest in drone UFOs, UAPs, UAVs, whatever you want to call them, got me thinking about some images that I had seen, quote unquote, of so-called drones, also photographed by Navy personnel, and I wasn't able to use them until now for reasons that we're going to get into. So earlier this week, you saw, Jeremy, the story that Mystery Wire uncorked with a lot of help from you, photographs recorded of by an F-18 crew flying off the coast of Virginia, in the routes that they use for training all the time. 3 different unidentified objects, and the Navy has had these photos since March of 2019. I first saw them in April 2019, 2 years ago this week, but couldn't use them, and then we broke them out. You saw the story, right?
Yeah, it was amazing. And here's the deal: it takes a while to obtain information, to validate it, to get it out. You and I know that more than anybody. For years, we were communicating and working on the Tic Tac UFO story prior to it ever being public. I did have at least, I'll say, a video, if not multiple, prior, but I didn't know classification. Luckily, right before you and I went on air to kind of break it the first time, somebody leaked that video online. I swear it wasn't me. So it wasn't. So it was amazing to me. But you and I both know we can be aware of something, and we can know a little bit more, but we have to hold back, and we have to wait to see if we can responsibly break the story. And it can be really frustrating. So some of what I'm going to show you today, just like you admitted, you've had those images for years. I've had for a long time, but it took you and me working together to be able to verify it to the point where it's okay to come forward with it now. We know classification of it, and we know it's correct information. Took years.
Well, let's roll.
Okay.
Let's roll.
Yeah, but I think that's real important. What you're saying is that, Danny Silva did make a story out of that. We know that Acorn, or they called it the Batman balloon, but it wasn't. That image was circulating prior to people really paying attention to it on Twitter twice. I mean, it's pretty crazy. It had to burn you to be sitting there like, oh my gosh, I've got these other ones. Like, let's get the info out. But, yesterday was a good day. It was 2 years to the day that you had your kind of secret briefing. Right.
Exactly. 2 years. That's an amazing coincidence that's when we were able to release it, but I couldn't do it before,
Why?
I lacked context for it too. I mean, I didn't have permission to release the images, and then didn't really have the context. I had a misunderstandings about how the photos had been obtained. Was it 3 different images? Was it the same image that looked different from 3 different angles? 3 different pilots? You wasn't really clear on that when I first got the information. But when all this discussion about drones started up, drones buzzing Navy warships, made me think about it again. So I took another run at it, and was able to go ahead and move forward in a responsible way.
Yeah, and we were able to kind of verify for one another through our individual contacts, whatnot. So that was really useful as we learned more. We're better as a team, man. I mean, it's pretty cool. You're talking about drones. I want to make a point here before we get deep into this. People may remember an article. Tyler Rogaway has done some of the most incredible, straightforward, legitimate work on all of this because, he doesn't deviate. He did a story about drones in Guam, and I happen to know individuals involved with that. Tyler and I have talked a number of times. It is conveyed to me by everybody involved in our defense systems that the easy thing to do is label an unknown a drone and then push the paperwork away and say it's Chinese or it's Russia. That's what happened at Guam. There was this description of these vehicles that actually traversed differently than you would expect from drones. Yet it's a drone because we can push that away, explain it if we can't down it, and we're done. That's exactly and precisely what we're seeing in this huge event series. In 2019, in July, that involved kind of less the USS Kidd than the other destroyers and other types of ships. There are some dramatic events that occurred in that time frame, in that area.
The whole discussion of drones. Okay, drones, that just explains it. It's sort of a placeholder term. Maybe they don't know exactly what to call it at the time that the incident happens. They don't want the paperwork problem of trying to explain it or have to be investigated further in case somebody comes knocking at the door. And then, you have to ask the question, well, who the hell has these drones flying off the coast of Virginia right outside this gigantic critical military base? Where do they come from? How did they just appear there out of nowhere? Why do they look so weird too?
Two separate things. Let's distinguish for your audience. So we're talking about events that occurred on the East Coast in the kind of air warning area called W72. It's a designation off the East Coast of Virginia, let's say. There are also events in 2019 that occurred on the West Coast, which is right in the same kind of area that we've become, like 100 miles off the West Coast from Encinitas, let's say. It's the same area that we've been talking about before with the Nimitz encounters. So you're talking about two separate things. You're asking about drones. Okay, so here's the deal, man. This went to the highest level of the Navy, to the Joint Chiefs of Staff. This was the Los Angeles FBI. I mean, they went far and wide. So everybody in the top brass of the intelligence community with the Navy is asking. They even had a cruise ship come by and say, look, that's not ours. There's a Carnival cruise ship. We can't figure out whose these are. Now I do have a report from somebody who was on the ships, via a buddy of mine. And where are they landing? Where are they taking off from? What types of batteries do they have that they can last far longer than any of these unmanned aerial vehicle drones that would be able to maneuver like this? How are they over our destroyers? How are they over? And by the way, they're not just lights in the sky or small little drones, as we're going to find out in this conversation. There's a lot more going on than people understand. So today, I guess we're going to clarify, but if we need to get into that, why they use the word drone, compared to why it's absolutely not a conventional drone. We can do that. And you can look at what Tyler reported on, that, you know, they had confirmed that they had Phantom 5 DJI drones that could fly maybe 10 feet away from the boat, but for very short durations, 28 minutes at longest. They're not ours. We know that. We were worried they're Chinese. We're worried they're Russian. We went to our industry, our intelligence industry went to everybody they could, highest level, still unidentified, like the Acorn, the blimp with the payload, and the sphere that you released yesterday. It's still unidentified. These are not balloons.
Yeah. And how did they just appear? How did they appear over the kid without being tracked on their way in? These sensors on these ships or on these planes like the F-18, they can't see these things coming in or and then leaving too.
This was the big problem. This was the problem that you know was conveyed to me like over and over and over. But again, I want to step away from the USS Kidd. This is not a USS Kidd event. That always bothered me because I had all this information. I couldn't say shit about it. That always bothered me. This is a series of events with an entire fleet, an entire strike group. And this was happening durationally, or, you know, over a period of time. So as an example, one of the things that was conveyed to me is not only where did they land, where did they come from, how did they travel the distance, how did they have the power source for the lights, how could they evade detection, like the fire warning officer, whatever it's called, like of one of these ships, let's say, would be aware of anything in the sky because that's that person's job is to get it out of the sky. How do these things just appear and then disappear? You know, we have on some of these ships, we have and the Aegis system, which you are now, and we all, because of the Nimitz encounters, you can detect things up to 80,000 feet. How are these evading detection?
Yeah.
I don't know.
All right. So you have developed information sources that have filled in a lot of the blanks about some of the incidents that have been provided to the UAP task force. You have sources that have told you what the UAP task force has been doing. I've heard some of the similar stories about how they're trying to educate military, intelligence agencies, and including some major defense contractors, in essence, to bring respectability to the topic. Hey, this is real. It's really going on. We need your help. Be our eyes and ears. Keep on the lookout for this. Help us gather information. Is that your understanding?
Oh yeah, that's my understanding now. You know, I was just to brass tacks it. I was given a huge data dump, and I get these all the time. Verifying that data dump, I thought was going to be very difficult, but it turns out it wasn't. There are two briefings that we should talk about. One is October 18th, 2019, and it was a UAP briefing within intelligence circles on intelligence servers that was created to educate enlisted intelligence, you know, higher ups on the UAP, I'll say problem, meaning that they see it as a problem, near misses, incursions, that kind of thing. But also to provoke better reporting. There was also a 3-page classified document, which I'll share the identification number of, and maybe somebody will leak it, I don't know, that like is about how to report it. But there was also a May 1st, 2020, UAPTF is the title, so we know what that is, UAP Task Force, more extensive a briefing on the UFO phenomenon. And I have been able to obtain unclassified imagery and video from this briefing, as well as confirm that it came from the briefing, as well as the contents and you know, a lot of what was specifically detailed in this briefing. And the important point here is that our United States military defense is taking seriously the UFO UAP topic, and they are taking proactive measures to educate their intelligence officers so they can brief everybody that works for them, and we can get better information so we can find out the intent was the point in this briefing. The intent of these unknown advanced aerospace transmedium systems or vehicles.
Just to clarify, the UAP task force is not sharing this information with you and I. They are sharing it with other professionals in their trade, you know, the intel and military and some private companies, telling them, bringing them up to speed on what's been going on, but they're not giving it to us.
No, people
There are a lot of people
who
who have this. A lot of people have this information, though, right?
It's not Bigelow feeding you all your information, like I saw somebody say online. You know, this is hardcore investigative journalism. We have made ourselves, you know, touchstones for people to reach out to if they have something of high importance. And by the way, I mean, you've known this, but I've looked into this, is that I understand we're protected by shield law, by the First Amendment. People can speak to us without the concept they're going to have repercussions when they speak to a journalist or investigative filmmaker or whatever, reporter, because what that does is that dampens First Amendment speech. So the Supreme Court has constantly defended this right. So when somebody comes to us, as long as I don't feel it's unethical, as long as it doesn't say classified on it directly, and I understand this to be true, I can and have a duty to report on it. So do you. But the witnesses or the sources have ultimate protection. So anybody who wants to come forward to us, they can do so. And the Supreme Court backs us up. I just want to make that really clear. I'm not doing anything shady. And also, there's a lot of people that say, well, it should come through FOIA. Good luck, have fun.
Yeah.
Don't be upset that we're providing you more information.
Yeah.
I think you should say thank you.
Yeah, Nevada has one of the strongest shield laws in the country, and
Really?
we have availed ourselves of it many times during the course of my career. So just to clarify too, the information that's about to be shared is not classified. We're not breaking any law in that regard, right?
From what I understand, what we're about to share are specifically unclassified. They are contained within a classified briefing, but that doesn't mean that these individual aspects are classified. Every line is shown unclassified, classified, that kind of thing. I went to great measure to be as accurate as I could that this is the case. So yeah, we are not breaking any laws. You know, this is the way it works.
Okay, let's go.
Okay, so essentially, here's the deal. Let me just give you a quick little background. So I got an anonymous data dump. I get them all the time. I get about 900 emails a month that are actionable, like actual things. I can't verify these things, you know, they're videos, they're videos and this sort of thing. But military cases are great because military cases, you know, there's an inordinate amount of documentation if you can access it. Luckily, because of the stories you've broke before, George, and your contacts, and then the ones I've developed, we were able to independently verify that all of this is correct and true. There are some things I believe to be true that I'm not going to include in this conversation with you, but I'm working on it. But the things I am sure to be true. Right now, I'm going to show you 2 slides. So they're composite images from video of 2 separate encounters. Why they're important is because one is they were described in the briefings, in the intelligence briefings, as very importantly, pyramid-shaped UAPs. Although it appears as a triangle or triangles, that's because a face or a facade of the vehicle is projected at the individual, actually shooting through night vision, through this 3rd generation night vision, using, you know, a recording device. But this comes right from encounters on the USS Russell in July of 2019. I'm also going to share with you an image that is FLIR. And we all know what FLIR is now because Commander David Fravor and Commander Chad Underwood. And that is still images of a USO, so a transmedium vehicle that is a sphere. It was described as a sphere, and it drops into the water. No crash, no wreckage. They even had a submarine check it. And I'm trying to validate that these are intertwined events, which is what they said in the briefing. But sometimes people that create briefings get it wrong. And I just want to make sure the location of the USS Omaha, because that's related to the other image. And then finally, the coup de grace blew my mind. This is the best UFO evidence that I have personally seen. The reason I'll say that is because of the providence of it. It's not all created equal what you see through night vision if you film. I know for certain this was taken on deployment from the USS Russell. And so it shows these, what they described as vehicles. And they made a great distinction. They made sure in this classified briefing, they made a great distinction that this is not something that we own, either a black project. This is not something of a foreign military, that these were behaving in ways that we did not expect, and that they were, shaped non-aerodynamically. Like pyramids. These are flying pyramids.
Yeah, you don't see a lot of those.
No, this footage is incredible. It's incredible because of where it came from. It's military footage captured on a deployment of flying pyramids.
All right, so Jeremy, what are we about to see?
So this is slide number 1. This is actual image or a composite image, a slide within this classified briefing from May 1st, 2020. And what this shows is 3 of these, they call UNK, unknown UAS, unidentified aerial systems. And again, they're seeing seemingly triangular in shape, because of the angle of observation. However, in the classified briefing, they clearly and purposely distinguished that these were pyramids in shape. And they were hovering 700 feet above the USS Russell's fantail. Now, this is, one image of a type of craft. We're going to go now to another image, a different type of craft. This image is very interesting because it's the USS Omaha, and it's described as a spherical shaped UAP or UFO. And what's so interesting is in this slide, it, talks about how it moved towards the surface of the ocean and then disappeared. And what I found out is that the Omaha, assessed that, that the object had gone into the water, but there was no wreckage. And they even had a submarine search. So they determined in the classified briefing, they determined that this was a trans-medium vehicle, that it could penetrate that air to water barrier. We don't have craft, by the way, that can effectively do this. And nobody does. No nation on Earth has that technology at this time. And so this was an astounding kind of image for them, because it's the UFOs becoming USOs. So that's what this image represents. And
is there any indication, Jeremy, did you see any indication of how fast this thing was moving when it entered the water?
I am unaware of the speed of the object.
Right.
And then finally, I'll show you one more, and this is kind of the coup de grace. So before I show it to you, just want to reiterate the importance of these 2 slides is they are used as educational tools for our intelligence community, that these come directly from that briefing. They are unclassified though, and it shows not only these pyramid-shaped UFOs around one of our warships, but it also shows the spherical transmedium vehicle that dropped into the water. And then this is what really got me. I'm going to share with you a video now, and it's 17 seconds. And again, it's shot through this night vision monocular, something similar to this. So it's inherently non-classified. However, within a classified document, it's encased. I was able to obtain it. It was given to me. Here it is. Super interesting. There's a lot to discuss in it, but. I'm going to play it again and narrate over it. Notice there's 2 objects to the right below, then it comes up to the one in the cloud. It focuses on it. It appears to be blinking. There's 2 on the left. The ones on the left are not blinking. And the one on the right is about to overtake the ones on the left. They were traveling under intelligent control. They were non-aerodynamic. They outperformed what you'd consider for normal like drones, although there's no like rotors. And this is through IR, so you'd see heat signature in some way as well. Actually, I'm going to take that back. I'm not positive you would, but you're seeing these objects go. One is blinking or appears to be blinking. Some of the people I spoke with who are familiar with the intelligence reports are saying that it's possible that the facade or the face of it was facing directly into the eye of the night vision. So it picks up all the ambient light, and that could have been a reflection from a warning light off of the helicopter, because the others aren't blinking. So it's really interesting. But I mean, they were pyramid shaped UFOs that came up on our destroyers and on our, Navy warships. And we couldn't figure out whose they were.
This is all in the same time frame as the USS Kidd, right? Are these ships traveling with the Kidd?
Yeah. So at that time, that was in July 2019, it got increasingly strange. So the 14th and 15th in July, there were some like drone sightings. And by the way, on the other ships, they had different things that happened. So like some were just like lights that did figure eights and patterns and 90-degree turns. Others were like a different color light, like red. This was a dramatic event in July of 2019 off of the USS Russell that is intertwined because it was later in the month. And there's a hint to that in these emails that were leaked that were obtained through Tyler Rogaway, where there were other recent events. This is what they're talking about.
Makes you wonder whether the agenda of whoever is flying these things has changed, because there have been these fairly dramatic ongoing disclosures. I mean, things that appear in the sky in places where they know they're going to be detected, off the East Coast of Virginia, off Florida, with these ships with all kinds of sensors and planes with all kinds of sensors. And this extended series of events, the USS Kidd, then the Russell and the Omaha, it's like they want to be seen now all of a sudden.
Yeah, it could be argued that I think it's really interesting. Like Commander Fravor and the other pilots that went out to engage the Tic Tac, they weren't told that the events of the USS Nimitz and the Tic Tacs dropping in from above 80,000 feet to sea level in less than a second without a sonic boom, that they were docking with something that appeared to be under the water. They weren't told any of that. It's just like they were targeted to go out there, and some of them are upset they weren't told about it prior, but they were targeted to go out there. These machines, these vehicles, whatever they are, they were doing a job. They were doing something. They weren't performing for us. What were they doing? So now we're seeing more brazen kind of attitudes from whoever operates these vehicles, where they are hunting. And they are observation platforms. They are reconnaissance platforms. They are absolutely watching most powerful defenses within our most restricted spaces. So yeah, there is a difference. Now, that is what the question lingers, in this report. What is the intent of the operators of these machines? That's what we don't know. That's why people say it's AAVs, anomalous threats, because we don't know intent. If you don't know intent, it's like Thunderdome.
We can make some guesses. Those are not seagulls, right? We can cross that.
So clearly with the videos that I have now presented, you, they're not birds.
So the next guess will be, those are ours. Those are a secret drone technology that we are testing in that Catalina area. There's some kind of advanced Navy drone program, and they're just seeing how our service people would react.
So that's patently false. And that is what people will say. I'd say more than highly unlikely that the government would intentionally conduct tests against its own unwitting military assets just because of the dangers involved with that. Additionally, these objects are not aerodynamic, yet they're in controlled flight. I would love if we had that kind of technology. These aren't weather reconnaissance instruments. These were able to appear and disappear. They were not able to be captured. Anybody that operates these kinds of things, so brazenly near our warships, is in for it. We have good weaponry. Typically, we can take care of this. There have been attempts by other nations to shoot these down. I don't want to.
Yeah, does the UAP task force conduct briefings for the Joint Chiefs, for members of Congress, for their bosses, basically, and tell them, these are unknowns, when in fact, somebody up there in the higher echelons would clearly know whether they were ours or not.
That's not the job of the UAP task force. They don't have all the answers. They come in because all the people that own all the cool toys don't have answers. All the Black Project people don't have answers. So that's the UAP task force, is like a investigator. Cool job. I mean, how cool is that?
I guess you have to keep open the possibility that some of these could be Chinese or Russian. We hear that as an explanation for them as well. If it is Chinese or Russian, they've made a leap past us. And they've got so many different models, right? They've got pyramids, and they've got metallic blimps, and they've got Batman balloon looking drones.
They got acorns. That's such acorns. A ridiculous thing. So Batman balloon. It's like saying, hey, the moon is round, so are basketballs. The moon must be a basketball. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous, but that's cool. So in the military, everybody who has talked to me about it, who actually has inside information, more than just some internet warrior, has called it the acorn. So basically they have these terminal, and the blimp was a blimp with payload. They didn't explain that, but maybe there's information I'm sure there's information I'm not privy to that's classified.
We had reported this week that, they've been looking at these images, the ones off of Virginia, for a while, and they are still unidentified. I mean, I know a lot of people out there in Twitter land have decided that they're blimps, the Chinese this, they're Russian that, there are secret projects, they're just regular helium balloons, something like that. But our military, which has had these images for 2 years, has looked at them, and they cannot reach that conclusion. They are true unknowns.
Yeah, I mean, the real skeptic, would keep the possibility open and not pretend like they know everything. So the images you released yesterday, I mean, I just want to make sure people understand they're of great importance and significance. You had obtained them years ago. You played by the rules, and then it was time, and it was okay to let them out. These didn't exist before you released them. So this gives us more information. Our military still, they have people within the intel community who deal with this on a daily basis have personally said to me that these are not balloons. That's ridiculous. We would identify those very easily. There's probably other sensor systems related to the reconnaissance of these vehicles that you showed photos of that are not public. It'd be cool if they became public. So this story is more about these images and video now that I've shown you as being part of an intelligence briefing that is used to educate individuals within our military defense on the UAP phenomenon and its performances. That's the story here.
Yeah, that they are pursuing this with good intentions to try to figure it out. And to this date, they don't know. They don't know what they are or where they're from or why they're here.
Exactly. Yeah. And people ask, like, why is the military so open now and when it wasn't before? And you and I both know, George, from dealing with this situation, they are not more open. The Department of Defense does not want any of this information out. In fact, they'd love it if we stopped working. Okay. But the thing is that there are some elements that have put us to where we are now. They're not coordinated like some big disclosure thing. I wish that was true. I can see it very clearly. I know it's not that, but public pressure being number one. The fact that public is saying, I want UFO, UAP transparency, that really has pushed all of this forward. So back to the idea that this is not like a planned disclosure thing. You and I know that, George, from how hard it is pulling teeth to get information out and be able to educate the public on some of the stuff that we know. There's a few things, maybe 6 or 7, that I've noticed that have contributed to this attitude that we're seeing that is reluctant by the DoD. But pressure and demand for UFO transparency from the public has been paramount. The number one thing that has pushed this forward, number one. Then, of course, there was a perceived increase in UFO and UAP activity. I say perceived increase because there's an increase of events and recordings, and that was admitted to by a Pentagon spokesperson, oddly enough. We know that to be true. There's an increase. But I say perceived because you also understand that we have an evolution of our kind of sophisticated and modern, like radar and optics, and our targeting pods themselves have become more efficient. Maybe that's why we're catching more of these AAVs or UFOs. There's an increase in safety concern and near misses and mid-air collisions. And this is reported on the East Coast. They put out a warning. Hey, there are these things out there. So that is another factor that is kind of causing this attitude. And then there's an increased presence of unidentified aerial transmedium vehicles in restricted airspace in theaters of war, and most disturbing, over our protected nuclear facilities, which I also got a data dump on.
So more to come.
Oh yeah. People hate it when I say that. Well, I don't need to say it then, but yeah, there's more to come.
I'm going to bring Duncan, Phenix, and Matt Adams into the conversation. Duncan, what'd you think of this video?
I think the video is remarkable. Once you realize that it's a military sourced video. Now, if this was just a video that showed up somewhere, it could be anyone in their backyard making something up, but it's not. You guys have done the homework. You know where this video comes from. That's remarkable that it not only exists, but that we get to see it. And it also leads to the question of where's other video? That there has to be more.
Oh, there's
we know there's more. There has to be so much more out there.
Senator Harry Reid has said that directly to George on numerous occasions, that it's just like scratching the surface.
Mm-hmm.
And what did you think?
Go ahead,
Matt. What did you think?
Oh, I was going to address that the video purpose. That's something that's been brought up online quite a bit. Is like, why isn't there video? Why just these photographs? And I think the answer is, there is video. They just can't release that right now. And another thing is, people are still sticking to hey, that's the Batman pic. We've seen that before. We know what that is. And while it is the same object, it is not the same picture, and it has a different profile than the original one does whenever you look at it closer. So it is not the same pic. It was probably taken a few seconds beforehand, but it's not the same photograph.
Yeah, we spent quite a bit of time yesterday, Matt and myself, looking carefully at the two Acorn pictures that we now have, and the difference is in the reflection.
Well, no, I mean, but George and I were able to find the metadata. There's no doubt we know exactly when the photos were taken, and George's photo is different. I was hesitant on the release, because of the maybe we won't mention that. People figured it out, I'm sure, on the helmet.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a different photo. But look, here's the deal. Let me just bust them down real quick. Man, watching UFO on Twitter, it's crazy. I don't want to get too into it because this is for the greater public. It's not just for a small group of people online who are very passionate about this. But people were saying, oh, George is not going to release any photos. This is just a rehash of a story. And then he releases them. And even people who've reported on the past are like dogging him. Oh, they're not good enough. Well, okay. So yeah, just go ahead and park that, F-18 right next to the UFO and take a photo.
Yeah. I love that. Why doesn't that F-18 just slow down and park there next to it and get a real good close-up, a real clear close-up? Because, flying in a plane at high altitude at that kind of a speed and shooting out of the cockpit with an iPhone, yeah, that's a great formula for getting clear photos. I thought the clarity of the photos was sufficient.
It's never going to be good enough.
Yeah. Well, which actually brings me to a question for for either you, George, or Jeremy, or Matt, since you are a photographer as well, I do some still photography. I got my big DSLR. There's been a lot of talk online, as you all know, the debunkers saying, well, look at the sphere. It's just an out of focus something. The dashboard's clear. The thing's out of focus. It's called bokeh or bokeh or however you want to say it. To your point, you're in a jet traveling at X 100 miles an hour with an iPhone. This is a Samsung, but with an iPhone, trying to get a clear picture. Is that, to your understanding, that picture of the sphere, is it out of focus, or is that what the Wizzo in this case, is that what they were actually seeing with their eyes?
I don't know.
You know, I think we're at a more important point here. If my grandma sent me a photo with that blob in there, you know, I'd be like, okay. That's what debunkers do, is they just look at, like, you know, what's on their computer screen. They ignore all the other data, all the other information, anything else they ignore, you know, as a way to be reductionist. It's a very pathetic way to live. But
Well,
also,
excuse me, go ahead.
it's not useful. Yeah.
Well, when you look at the EXIF data on the images, you see that the ISO is very low, and because an iPhone doesn't have filters that filter out the light, everything is going to be in focus because it's compensating for so much light that its iris is shutting down so far. It doesn't matter where it sets the focus, everything is going to be in focus, from basically a foot away from the lens to infinity is going to be in focus.
Great point, Matt Adams.
Another thing that's been debated online, as I know you all have seen, is the fact that we put watermarks on the photographs. And I just wanted to address that. I think it's important because it's been brought up. We have had throughout the at least year and a bit, the mystery wire has been around, and you know, all media organizations deal with this. You have people who steal, use, abuse photographs, video. It's our, you know, it's our sourced content. This is not an uncommon thing to do.
Well,
Jeremy,
you guys are not a
blog.
blog. You guys are not a blog.
Yeah.
You're a news agency. I think it's a little different.
Yeah.
You know how many TMZ logos are over footage?
And for anyone who says that we're hiding something with that, we will be releasing these photographs without the larger watermark.
Yeah.
So you can remove that from the equation.
See, I thought those watermarks were chemtrails in the sky, you know? Yeah.
I'd like to jump back to the loitering objects, and people claiming, hey, why do we have such terrible pictures? All these things. These are trained pilots, and this is something that Lou Elizondo got into with us, and as well as Commander Fravor. These are trained pilots. They would know what's up there. These have been loitering for a long time. They're not, and also they're providing these photographs for study. And that means you're saying that Commander Fravor did not see the Tic Tac with his bare eyes. And so you're disputing and basically calling him a liar. You're calling Chad Underwood a liar. And now you're calling these pilots liars who are now providing information to Congress, which means they are lying to Congress. And I don't know if you know, but they're laws.
I mean, it's more of a conspiracy theory. These, you know, debunkers, I don't want to give them too much time, guys. It's more of a conspiracy theory to make up this bullshit, you know, than it is to just look at what happened, what's reported, and here's the evidence, you're welcome. You know, the thing is, like, with this stuff that I'm showing you right now, the video, to me, it's some of the most impressive government filmed UFO evidence that I have personally ever seen. People should take it on face value, and then they should research it and try to verify that what I'm telling you is true. That this was filmed on the USS Russell in July of 2019, and these objects are being looked at by our Department of Defense, and they're unknown, and it's freaking them out. Verify that, please, because it's true. So this footage will go down in history as some of the best UFO footage to date.
We should point out too that, Jeremy, you are aware of multiple other videos that are part of these presentations that have been, these briefing presentations that have been made to various groups.
I am aware. I am also aware that certain types of footage are inherently classified. And that's something that I just don't know yet if I could transmit to the world. But as an example, if there was footage through FLIR in an active war zone of a flying saucer coming up to a FLIR camera and moving away, that would be special.
Probably be classified.
I am pretty damn sure that'd be classified. So these are unclassified what I'm showing you.
Matt, any other comments before we move on?
No, I think that pretty much covers it. The one thing I was going to say is inevitably people are going to be looking at the pyramid video and they're going to be seeing these other pyramids in the background, and they're going to make a claim that they are somehow lens flares or reflections from the other pyramid. But if you watch it multiple times and you look closely, it's very clear they're not flashing. That object is flashing. They'd be flashing in synchronicity. So it's clearly multiple objects.
Oh, man,
just to point out the obvious,
they'll pick it apart.
Drones, we're not talking this kind of drone.
No,
this is your commercial available DJI drone.
Yeah.
Like you were saying at the beginning, using drone as sort of a generic coverall.
These are freaking huge flying pyramids under intelligent control, hovering over and around for durational periods longer than the batteries that we have.
Mm-hmm.
A warship. Yeah, this will be interesting. Pick it apart.
As you release more information, Jeremy, you'll have some specifics about the incidents that you've shared with us today about the where, when, dates, things of that sort.
Absolutely. I'm sure that, you'll get the information first. Mystery Wire on Channel 8 will get it first, but, I'll put it on my website, extraordinarybeliefs.com. But I'm going to do something interesting. Like as this is dropping, just prior to this dropping a few minutes, I'm just going to put it on social media. That is the best way for millions of people to have access to it instantaneously and get a collective awareness and collective investigation into what I'm providing. Covers my ass too. It's out. That's it.
All right. Well, thanks for sharing it with us and for the collaboration. And we'll be talking to you soon.
Yeah, I think it should be made very clear, though, with it, working with you and Matt and being able to verify some of this, it would have been impossible without that. So from your photos that you released yesterday as a big dump, that's a big data dump for people, to this new footage. This collective effort has been, for me, very exciting, but also it's hard to do. Like, I hope that people appreciate the work that we've put in to make sure we're doing it right. I think people underestimate how difficult it is to coordinate this type of release, and it can take years. And Matt, and George knows as well that this is a coordinated effort, and working together is really what made it happen. And man, what else is there? But before we get there, everybody absorb this. Absorb this footage. It is a powerful new evidence that we didn't have, this week prior to your guys' drop of the images and the drop of these two slides in the video. And hopefully we get more soon. But thanks, guys.